Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, and honored guests tonight, many of whom are my business colleagues and friends. Delivering this lecture is a great honor for me, and it's a great honor for all of the employees at GE. I'm especially honored to speak about clean energy at the initiation of the Prince of Wales, who's been a leader in sustainability for so long. You've been a thought leader on this subject for decades, and it's an honor to be here. Before I begin, I would like to reiterate that in many ways, the United Kingdom is a home game for GE. We have 18,000 employees in the country. We have about £9 billion of revenue, and in the last decade, we've invested more than £12 billion in the country. Literally every business in GE is represented here. We are a high-tech exporter from your shores. And I want to thank the government and really our business partners in the room for its great support. And we're quite optimistic in the future of this country. Today we're really emerging from an economic crisis, a financial crisis that really has the world thinking about itself in a new way. We see in many ways the reordering of the global economy. I joined GE in 1982. In the decade of the 80s, the developed world produced 80% of the GDP growth. Western Europe, US, and Japan. In the next decade, the emerging markets will provide 80% of the global growth. So the world in front of us, really in one generation, in my generation, has changed dramatically. Meanwhile, governments around the world, the United Kingdom and the United States alike, face tremendous budget challenges and deficits that have to be addressed. And there's high unemployment really everywhere in the world. We read about it in Europe and the United States, but there's somewhere between 200 and 300 million people looking for a job as we sit here tonight. People are frustrated by the role that government and business have played. They don't think in many ways that we know how to fix problems. They're not sure we know how to create growth, and they're not sure we know how to create jobs. So the institutions that people in the developed world have trusted for generations are now being challenged. In that context, really, what I'm qualified to speak here tonight is on competitiveness. How do we compete in the 21st century? GE does business in 120 countries around the world, 120 countries, and I've probably been to 80 or 90 countries in my career. And in some way, shape, or form, there are 4 pillars of a competitive society: education, affordable health care, financial systems that promote entrepreneurship, and clean energy. So the discussion I'll have tonight on clean energy isn't unique to the United Kingdom. It's not unique to the United States. It's going on really in every country and in every government around the world. Now, the one thing's for sure is that the demand for energy is going to grow substantially in the next 30 years, substantially. If you just look at the automotive penetration in China and India, and project that on a pathway that remotely resembles the developed world, the need for oil and gas and coal and every energy type is going to grow substantially. So that's the backdrop. But this is all about, in our mind, creating a clean energy future, a clean energy future. One that is sustainable, one that emphasizes energy security, one that drives competitiveness and job creation, one that reduces pollution. That has to be the vision for all of us in this room, and we have to get about that change today. Prince Charles calls this a call to a revolution. I would say to my business colleagues in the room, this is the biggest opportunity that we will face in the next decades. And we have to grab it, and we have to lead in this regard. Now, GE has decided to put ourselves in the front of the clean energy future and the clean energy challenge. GE today is about a $160 billion global company. We're big, probably the world's biggest infrastructure company, and we're a very big financial service company. We're 60% outside the United States, and we invest about $6 billion a year in research and development. In some way, we've been in the job of solving problems for more than 100 years. This is really the genesis of our founding with Thomas Edison, and we have that spirit today. And we've really selected 2 big macro global problems that we want to be the pillars of the GE brand. One is affordable health care, and we have a very substantial presence in healthcare, and we're really driving cost, quality, and access. And the other is clean energy. And it's our belief that through innovation, we can align investors, employees, and society. And that we don't have to think about this as a minimization effort. We can think about this as a maximization effort through technology and innovation. In 2004, we started an initiative built around clean energy that we called Ecomagination. And we really studied the science. We sent teams of our researchers to study the science. We came to the conclusion, really from purely a scientific basis, that global warming is a fact and it's caused by man, and that we believe that the science and technology inside GE would be sufficient to create growth and solutions. We had teams of innovators that studied our technology. We went out and talked to our customers. We studied public policy on a global basis. And in 2004, we really drove forward on an initiative around clean energy that had 4 parts. The first one was we committed to double our research and development on clean technology. We defined our clean technology as any innovation that would reduce our carbon output by at least 25%. And we doubled our R&D on an annual basis to almost $2 billion a year on those products. The second thing we did is we focused on innovating and developing products. So when we first started, we had 15 products that met that goal. Today we have 100 products that meet that goal. We said we wanted to be good for our investors, so when we started this journey, we had $5 billion of revenue in clean energy products. In 2010, we'll have $20 billion of revenue in clean energy products. So it was good for our investors. We decided to run our company voluntarily along the Kyoto Protocol, and 5 years later, our energy intensity has gone down by 39%, and we have a net 22% reduction in carbon. At the same time, we've saved money, more than $200 million. And we decided and committed to be visible in the public. So we're a founding member in the United States of what's called the U.S. Climate Action Partnership that has NGOs, industrialists, oil companies, energy companies, really trying to come together to forge public policy in the United States. So over the last 5 years, we basically have come to the conclusion that green is green, that basically driving clean energy products was good for our employees, good for our investors, and very much good for the brand. And I stand here today, 5 years later, to say this in many ways has been a success. It's been a success in terms of revenue growth. It's been a success in terms of reputation, but it hasn't been without challenges. And what I thought I'd do is just share in the last 5 years some of the lessons we've learned as a company as we've gone through the evolution to be a clean tech innovator in this world. The first thing is that technology has to be in the forefront, and that the technology should be broad-based and should be robust. Fundamentally, for almost 30 years, the energy sector underinvested in technology and research development. I mean, from roughly 1980 till 2003, oil was $15 a barrel around the world, and there were no real incentives to drive the kind of energy innovation and future that is required to drive sustainability and growth at the same time. Today, I think we have a very robust technology platform, and that technology platform is very broad, and it's getting deeper every day. And my one message, I would say, around technology, what I've learned is don't pick one technology, don't pick one fuel, don't favor one approach, but drive multiple approaches at the same time. And what I thought I'd do is just maybe go across just the portfolio of GE, which is clearly what I know the most about, to give you a sense of the depth and the breadth of innovation and technology that exists today in clean energy. First, conservation. Every discussion on sustainability and clean energy has to start with conservation. The new appliances that GE will introduce over the next 3 or 4 years will use 50% less energy than the products that they replace today. And this kind of innovation is prevalent. So conservation and innovation has to remain at the forefront of what we do. Driving great efficiency. new technologies that drive energy efficiency. The jet engine that will fly on the Boeing Dreamliner that both Rolls-Royce here in the UK and GE will compete for is 20% more fuel efficient than the technologies that it replaces. The new locomotives that we introduced today have 99% fewer emissions than they had 25 years ago. So the convergence of market factors are driving innovation and technology. The big baseload energy technologies that have existed in the past have to be reinvented and reinvested in to drive clean energy in the future. What do we do with coal and sequestration? These are technologies that will require massive investment on a global scale to get perfected. And a new generation of nuclear technology that does reprocessing or other things that make it environmentally sound and economic are other innovations that will be perfected and need to be invested in this generation. Renewables are becoming pervasive and lower cost. The offshore wind projects that will be based primarily in the United Kingdom, but also in Germany, will be big drivers of new energy sources, clean energy sources, and low cost. Solar energy is still in its infancy, and higher efficiency levels and better applicability in terms of storage are in our future. Biofuels represent tremendous utility on the distributed energy generation, and again, will create jobs and commerce as time goes forward. An electricity grid that in many countries, the UK included, the grid is 50, 60, 70 years old. The grid has to be bigger and it has to be smarter. And research and our own experience has shown by just with consumers knowing how much electricity they're using by being smarter can reduce their electricity by more than 10%. So efficiency is quite important. The ability to develop unconventional fuels. James from Shell is here tonight. The whole shale gas evolution and the ability to use gas technology in the future represents leading edge technology that again will help drive a clean energy future. I'm a big believer in electric vehicles. Personally, I think electric vehicles give consumers empowerment. That's what they want. And we're convinced that electric vehicles are going to have a big fit in the coming economy, and we'll invest accordingly. We've made investments in lithium batteries and sodium batteries, and we'll continue to push that forward. Water reuse and conservation. I mean, water and energy have to be viewed as common and consistent. These are businesses that, again, will be invested in to really drive complete recycling of water that's being used in heavy process industries. Small business will benefit along with big business. Today, people like small businesses. They're not so sure they like big businesses in this environment. But there are many small businesses who have innovated and have technology that'll be a big part of the clean energy future. So my first lesson is that technology is available. It's pervasive. We have to make it low cost. We have to make it available. But sustainability will not be stopped by lack of innovation. It'll be stopped by lack of courage. But the technology exists today and can be perfected that in the next 10 years we can gain control, technically, over a clean energy future. So point number one is innovation on a massive scale, a broad scale, and with big business working with small business to invest to make these technologies pervasive. Lesson number one. Lesson number two that we learned is that clean energy engages the extended enterprise. Our employees love working on sustainability. They love working on clean energy. We have in our factories what we call treasure hunts, where employees go and look for energy efficiency ideas. We execute about 5,000 of these every year across the GE footprint. People are engaged, they bring new ideas, it helps us recruit on college campuses, it makes us a more relevant company. As a 130-year-old company, you have to constantly be thinking about what's next. In the eyes of young engineers who are graduating from college today, this is what's next. It's what keeps us vibrant and alive. Our customers very much appreciate this approach. When we first said we were going to work on sustainability in the middle part of the last decade, at first our utility customers were quite suspect and quite against us. And I'd say over the past 5 years, we really have great alignment between our energy generating customers and GE in terms of the value of technology. And we can extend an enterprise to include small businesses. We launched in July what's called a Smart Grid Challenge. We basically put online where GE is investing on the smart grid, and we allowed every idea, every entrepreneur in the world to submit their idea for potential GE funding. We've received 3,500 ideas in the last 90 days. We'll make 50 equity investments of small businesses that we can work with as part of the extended enterprise to make sustainability and clean energy part of the future. So people love it. The extended enterprise leverages it, and it makes us a relevant company. The third thing we've learned, clean energy is a way to create jobs. Clean energy is a way to create jobs. This is a source of economic competitiveness, not an economic risk. In our supply chain, we have created 50,000 jobs around clean energy, 50,000, just in GE alone. There will be 10 million new jobs created in the next decade around the decarbonization effort and around the imminent conversion of older power generation technologies into newer power generation technologies. The debate that this investing in clean energy will slow economic growth is just wrong. This is a place where countries, competitive countries, are getting an economic advantage. The biggest investor in clean energy in 2010 is China, not Europe, not the United States. So the decisions around investment, the decisions around job creation must be made now to create jobs and competitiveness over the coming decades. So point number 3 is that clean energy is a great bet to create economic growth and jobs in the next decade. Point number 3. The fourth thing I learned is that business alone isn't going to drive sustainability or create a clean energy future. Fundamentally, the cheapest source of electricity generation in the United States today are nuclear power plants. The one thing every nuclear power plant in the U.S. has in common is that the CEO that started it got fired. The disconnect between when a decision has to be made and economic benefit are in decades, not in days. These are long-term bets, and it's disconnected from the capital markets in a given moment in time. So the right investments can't be made without stable and forthright public policy. This has to be a part. And stability and vision in public policy is quite important, in addition to innovation and technology. I think everybody knows the policy elements that are important. There's not a lot that has to be recreated. It's a price for carbon. It's some form of clean energy standards. It's some form of technical incentives that allow and help fund some of the commercialization of great technologies and new technologies. It's some form of long-term financing, infrastructure banks, infrastructure financing that allow 30-year investments to be made. That's really it. So it's not like new policy has to be invented. There just has to be a commitment to do it. And that's what counts. And here again, this is going to be decided quickly. I would say China is way in the lead. Europe has many of these things in place. And the country where GE is based in the United States is behind on almost all areas of public policy and energy. So that's the challenge that's in front of us. So I learned that technology is key. I learned that people love it. I've learned that it's a way to create economic growth and jobs. And I've learned that public policy has to be the underpinning of everything we do. Now, the fifth thing I've learned is, despite the fact I think it's smart, there's a lot of people that disagree with me. I've been quite humbled by the mission you've been on for 20 years and the mission I've been on for 5 years. This is humbling. Because despite all of our good work, Despite the optimism we have in the future, we have not yet been able to bring all of our fellow citizens along with us. And I think we're better off being realistic about that and not being critical about it, but being reflective about it. Because in that way, I think we have a chance. In general, in a tough economic time, people look at sustainability as being for the elite, as being something we can't afford, right? I would say Copenhagen is at best mixed in terms of results, and therefore we have to reframe the broad-based environmental debate. The science has been challenged and not as accurately fought back as it should have been and can be. And it's become a political event in the US and elsewhere around the world of where do you stand on cap and trade, where do you stand on climate. So in many ways, I'd say the movement is more challenged today than it was when economic times were good. So I don't say this to be negative, I say this to be realistic in that with all the good things that are happening in sustainability and all the promise it has for job growth, we've not yet closed the deal in terms of what we have to do in sustainability and how we have to grow. Now, I view this as a challenge. I think we're at a particularly critical time if people associate the fact that a bad economy means that we can't solve some of society's great problems. So, I think we have to move forward. And I think we have to, starting with me, starting with us, rebrand the discussion, rebrand the debate, and we need to do it today. In my world, and the way I think about it is, for a while we're going to have to go without the government. You know, in other words, in industry, if we think we're going to wait for the government to move, we may be waiting a long time. So we have to, in some ways, create our own momentum, create our own courage, and go forward in sustainability and clean energy, and that's certainly what we're going to do in GE. If I had one thing that I wish I personally had done differently, is I wish I had talked less about green, less about purely the environment, and I wish I had talked more about economics, more about job creation, more about energy security, more about just broad-based gut job-creating economics. So I think the challenge that we have isn't that global warming isn't a big issue. It is. It's a critical issue, and it's one that we have to solve. But we have to go back and say that green equals growth, sustainability equals jobs, climate equals competitiveness, that the government really in energy is a catalyst and not a regulator, that government really is essential to drive change. And we've got to really inspire in business a clean energy future. That really is the role of the people in this room, that now is exactly the time, because it's less popular, where we have to invest more, we have to do it more courageously, and we're going to have to go for a while without the government at our back. We're going to have to go forward. Now, in our company, I'll just give you some examples of what we've done and what we're planning to do really between now and the end of the year to really make sure people know GE's not backing off our commitment to clean energy. In fact, if anything, we talk in our company about doubling down. We are doubling down on Ecomagination. We are doubling down on clean energy. We're going to invest $10 billion in R&D over the next 5 years just in clean technology. A week or so ago, we announced that we were moving our entire appliance production back to the United States to do clean energy products because we wanted to make a statement that actually clean tech creates jobs in the United States and that we can do it more economically in the US than we could in Mexico or China. We're making a statement about clean energy. Next week, we will place the largest order. GE runs the biggest fleet business, the biggest car fleet business in the world. We're going to place the biggest order in history for electric vehicles. We're going to put half of our own sales force in electric vehicles. We have other partners like Johnson & Johnson and Hewlett-Packard that are going to work with us. And we're going to make a big commercial commitment to electric vehicles. Tens of thousands of orders, the biggest order in history. We're going to go out and work with people in the industry to try to find a way to do unconventional gas exploration and completely refresh the water back to 100% usable water, and demonstrate it with technology that we have the capability to drive new innovation and still be environmentally sound. We're going to do that. We're building momentum with utilities in the U.S. I mean, my poor customers in the U.S. really don't know what to invest in right now. So we're going to try to work together with the government, try to get bipartisan support to say, maybe we can't do an economy-wide energy plan, but let's take the utility industry and let's just work together because there's broad agreement on what needs to be done. Please give us the guidance that we can go forward as a small group, that we can do it in a bipartisan way and allow us to make the smart investments in the future. We're involving with more consumers on zero energy homes and our commercial real estate that's more sustainable, working in urban areas, on green cities, to try to make it more tangible and more real to the people that really we need to convince that clean energy is important. And lastly, we continue to work in China and India, because I'm convinced that everybody in those countries wants a clean energy future, just like we talk about here. And in many ways, they're moving faster than we are. And so my message to my business colleagues in the room is that your involvement in green so far has been easy. It's been trendy, it's been popular, and it's been fun. Now the work has to begin. Now we have to demonstrate to people that with high unemployment and rugged economics, this is not frivolous, it's not unreal, it's not diseconomic, it's economic. Put our money where our mouth is, move without support, move with some uncertainty, but move. And GE is going to be in the front of that campaign. I'm pretty convinced there's not going to be substantial legislation in the US, at least not in the short term. But I see interest in our employees and our customers. And the way business works is when you're investing when nobody else does, you make a lot of money. And so we're going to continue to go against the grain, and we're going to continue to invest because we think over the long term, this is one of the best economic growth areas that the company has to invest in. And we'll act, and eventually I think the government will come up with that. The last thing I want to talk about is that the other thing I've learned in my efforts, or our efforts in both the Clean Energy Initiative, but also just broadly coming through the crisis, is that we need to re-educate our employees, and we need to take new people we hire, and we need to create, in many ways, a new generation of leadership. We think that leadership in the 21st century is going to be more lateral and more connected. The new leadership traits are going to have to be upon us. That we're going to need to find people that are more persistent and more adaptable. We're going to have leaders that are more transparent in terms of what they're doing from a purpose and strategy standpoint. We're going to have more what I call systems thinking. And that in the end, a lot of these big global problems can only be solved through innovation, plus public policy, plus connection with society. And you have to connect maybe 4 or 5 dots at the same time. We're going to have businesses that are more networked with governments and society, and we need people that know how to do that. And so I think one of our challenges in taking on something like clean energy and sustainability is that the leadership model of the past has to be reformed, has to be changed. We have to have people that are broader, people that have more vision, that are longer-term thinkers, that are more adaptable and more connected. And as we do those things, as we are able to change the leadership model within GE, I believe we'll take on more issues and be able to solve more problems. There's nothing easy about solving climate change. There's nothing easy about sustainability. But I think a new generation of leaders can really help bring it to the fore. As a business person, I'd say right flat out to you that I know we can create jobs and improve the environment at the same time. As a leader, I know it's our responsibility to act in a disciplined and active way right now. And as a citizen, I know that we have to engage people that don't believe in climate change, and not do it in a negative way, but in a positive way, to show that we can create jobs and we can create an optimistic future as we innovate and drive change. And all of those things have to be captured inside GE. So let me summarize. A couple big points. The world has several problems that appear to conflict at the same time. Slow growth and high unemployment, and the need to reduce greenhouse gases. So many people believe that these are conflicting and that they're all occurring today. Global economics and political leadership are in transition. So governments are making very tough stands, like what Prime Minister Cameron has done here in the United Kingdom. I mean, we are in a transitional moment in the economic history of the world. As a result of those two things, people are afraid, and they're looking for leadership right now on all the big challenges, not just clean energy, but healthcare and many challenges. I think that in a time like this, innovation, both in terms of technology and business model, is the only way to drive growth and solve problems at the same time. So now's the time to invest more and not less. And I know that clean energy will be the most important, one of the most important economic drivers of the future. It'd be nice to have clarity in public policy, but if we don't have that, business is going to have to act independently for a while government catches up, and we're willing to do that. I think we should rebrand sustainability in the short term, not just as a way to save the environment, but as a source of economic growth and job creation and energy security. And as we do that, I think we can bring more people with us. And we need a new generation of leaders, systems thinkers, problem solvers, people that understand context and a broader horizon. And as we do these things, I'm quite optimistic that clean energy will be a catalyst for change, a catalyst for growth. And I really believe the technology exists that in the next decade, we can start on a pathway that dramatically reduces carbon and global warming. And I'm quite convinced we can do that. So as I said, Your Highness, it's an honor to be here tonight. It's an honor to be in front of so many friends in a place that we consider to be so strategic to GE, and talking about a subject that is so important, I think, to the future of our company and to the future of the world. So thank you very much.